So we're going to start out with a reading. This reading is from the first book of Samuel, chapter 28, verses 3 through 25. Now, we don't always read out of the Bible at UU Church, do we? But I like to do it sometimes, and I like to do it, as a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. I like to do it because, this book is ours just as much as it is anybody else's. The people who have used it to cause harm don't have any more right to it than we do, and don't have any, what they say it means doesn't, actually mean anything more than what we say it means. So, it's about reclaiming this text. This is a weird little story. This is a decidedly strange little story. Just come with me. It's going to be all right. Now, Samuel had died, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. Saul had expelled the mediums and wizards from the land. The Philistines assembled and came and encamped at Shunem. Saul gathered all Israel, and they encamped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. When Saul inquired of God, God did not answer him, not by dreams, or by Urim, or by prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, "Seek out for me a woman who is a medium, so that I may go and inquire of her." His servants said to him, "There is a medium at Endor." So Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes and went there, he and 2 men with him. They came to the woman by night, and he said, "Consult a spirit for me, and bring up for me the one whom I name to you." The woman said to him, "Surely you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off the mediums and wizards from the land. Why then are you laying a snare for my life to bring about my death?" But Saul swore to her by God, "As God lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." Then the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" He answered, "Bring up Samuel for me." When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." The king said to her, "Have no fear. What do you see?" The woman said to Saul, "I see a divine being coming up out of the ground." He said to her, "What is his appearance?" She said, "An old man is coming up. He's wrapped in a robe." So Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed his face to the ground and did obeisance. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Saul answered, "I am in great distress, for the Philistines are warring against me, and God has turned away from me and answers me no more, either by prophets or by dreams. So I have summoned you to tell me what I should do." Samuel said, "Why then do you ask of me, since God has turned from you and become your enemy? God has done to you just as God spoke by me, for God has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David, because you did not obey the voice of God and did not carry out God's fierce wrath against Amalek. Therefore, God has done this thing to you today. Moreover, God will give Israel along with you into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons shall be with me. God will also give the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." Immediately, Saul fell full length on the ground, filled with fear because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten nothing all day and all night. The woman came to Saul, and when she saw that he was terrified, she said to him, "Your servant has listened to you. I have taken my life in my hand and have listened to what you have said to me. Now, therefore, you also listen to your servant. Let me set a morsel of bread before you. Eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way." He refused and said, "I will not eat." But his servants, together with the woman, urged him, and he listened to their words. So he got up from the ground and sat on the bed. Now the woman had a fatted calf in the house. She quickly slaughtered it, and she took flour and kneaded it and baked unleavened cakes. She put them before Saul and his servants, and they ate. They rose and went away that night. Do we have any Pete Seeger fans in the room? It's UU Church, right? I barely need to ask. In the past few weeks, I've found myself re-listening to my old Pete Seeger albums. You know, this is the music that I grew up with, grew up knowing and loving, and it harkens back not just to my childhood, but sort of to an ideal, right? About everybody coming together and singing and fighting for what is right. So, in the past few weeks, as the situation in our country and in our world has gotten progressively more divided and frightening, I've found myself returning to Pete Seeger. I've been re-listening, trying to hear his advice, trying to figure out what he would have to say if he could see all of this. And I found myself thinking about the Witch of Endor. So this morning we're going to talk about the Witch of Endor. This is a weird little Old Testament story, even by weird little Old Testament story standards. I was having lunch recently with a friend of mine who's a rabbi, and I told him I was preaching about the Witch of Endor, and it was the only time that I've ever actually made someone spit out their drink. And, you know, he said, I'm sorry, you're doing what? And he was like, you know, as your friend and your colleague, I don't know. I was like, no, I got this. Because you don't hear a lot about this story, right? Because not only is it very strange, you know, it's easy to gloss over because it doesn't add anything to the bigger narrative, right? In the story, King Saul is scared, so he tries to get advice from Samuel, and Samuel isn't helpful, so then he's still scared, and it moves on. But still, we're going to take a look at this weird little story and see what we can learn from it, because as Unitarian Universalists, that is our right. So when the story begins, things aren't looking good for King Saul. Saul is about to engage in a huge battle, a battle that, according to a prophecy, he is going to lose badly. And he's understandably a little nervous, and he really wishes that he had the advice of his mentor and advisor, the prophet Samuel, who has just died. So he tries to get input from God in all the ways he knows how. He tries dream interpretation, and that doesn't work. And then he tries an ancient method of divination called Urim and Thummim. I've spent hours reading about Urim and Thummim, and I couldn't begin to tell you how it works. It's super complicated. But Urim and Thummim doesn't work. So he's without guidance, and he's feeling alone, and in his desperation, he decides to consult with a medium, with a person who can talk to the spirits of dead people. Now, this is a little complicated, right? Because he's just banished all of the mediums from the land, so he has to go underground. So he puts on his disguise, and he asks around and finds about a medium called the Witch of Endor. Endor is a small village in the Galilee, and if I have any Star Wars fans in the room, the people who are giggling know that Endor is also the planet where the Ewoks live. If you don't know, the Ewoks are these adorable little aliens in the Star Wars movies that look like talking teddy bears. So, you know, the Witch of Endor is usually portrayed as this sort of foreboding and scary figure, but, you know, I always picture her as this little, like, teddy bear person who's just, you know, it makes the whole story so much better. So, he goes to the Witch of Endor, and he begs her to bring back Samuel, so that he can hear Samuel's advice. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, many of us don't believe in the literal truth of the Bible. And you know, this isn't a terribly easy one to believe, but I think this is one of the truest moments in all of literature. even if it isn't the literal truth, it tells this deep human truth. I think we all have a few people we can think of, people who are no longer with us, whose advice we still find ourselves wanting. People who have helped shape our very understanding of the world, and still, whenever we want advice or comfort, we begin, one of the first things we feel is we miss that person. And we wish that their advice and their comfort were still a thing that we could have. This is why we save and reread letters that people we love have written us. It's why we visit the places that remind us of them. It's why I find myself driving around on rainy nights listening to Pete Seeger. So Saul goes to the witch of Endor and hires her to bring back Samuel, and she does. We think that the belief was that she would have accomplished this by pouring milk and honey over the place that he was buried, because after you died you can get food, so you tempted someone up with food, which strikes me as a disturbingly easy way to resurrect that. Like, I've got those things at my house. But anyhow, it works, and Samuel shows up. Samuel's ghost pops up in the entire Bible. This is the only ghost. We have people returning from the dead and people speaking to living people from across the divide, but in the whole book we only get one ghost, and it's this one right here. Reading theologians trying to explain that, or people on YouTube trying to explain why this is okay, it shouldn't be as funny as it is. So the ghost pops up and immediately says, why did you bring me back? Why are you bothering me? And Saul says, I'm about to fight this battle with the Philistines, and I can't get God to talk to me. And Samuel, he's kind of a jerk, right? He says, it's probably because God doesn't want to talk to you. And then he delivers what sounds, at first glance, very much like a prophecy of doom. But, and this is important, the prophecy that Samuel delivers is the exact same prophecy, word for word, as one that he delivered when he was alive. So he hasn't actually offered any new information. And so Saul collapses in despair and he grieves. Now we're gonna bookmark King Saul here, collapsed in despair, and talk about what just happened, because there's a lot to unpack here. I've been seeing a lot of people that I know and love reacting to everything that is going on in our country and in our world at the moment, and thinking a lot about King Saul, because it does feel like a scary time, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, because there are Unitarian Universalists all across the political spectrum, right? And we're lucky to have everybody. But regardless of where you fall, it does feel like our country and in our world is divided and is hurting in a way that is particularly frightening. All of controversies and protests and all of the rest, the tension and anger have felt almost palpable to me. And during this time of uncertainty and anger, I've heard so many people hearkening back to great thinkers and leaders, invoking their words and attempting to figure out how they factor into what happens now, and then what they would have to say about it if they were here. I've seen and heard many people bringing up the words of their favorite biblical prophets or politicians or poets, quoting what they said when they were alive and imagining what they would say now. A few days ago, I was participating at a demonstration in Boston, and I ran into a friend of mine who knew my late mother. My mom was her minister. And she came running up to me, and she hugged me, and she whispered, I just wish your mom were here. Somehow I feel like she would know what to do. And I said, yeah, I keep thinking the same thing. I thought about King Saul. In all of his panic and dread, about his upcoming battle, wanting to hear from the person who had advised him before, wanting their advice to make everything okay, wanting them to know what to do. And amazingly, Saul is able to do it. Right? Saul was able to get a meeting with his deceased advisor, and Samuel, his advisor, offers him nothing. Samuel rebukes him and then gives the same prophecy that he gave when he was alive. So even when Saul is able to do the thing that many of us wish that we could do but cannot do, it doesn't really work. And it really doesn't help. And so this is where we left Saul just now, cowering there with the witch of Endor on the spot where his friend's ghost just was. And here is where we get to the important part of the story. Right? Because the important moment is not, the massing armies or the ghost. That's all lead up. The important moment is afterwards, when King Saul is there grieving and scared, and the witch of Endor offers him food. And at first he refuses, but the witch of Endor and Saul's friends talk him into eating. And they all eat together before they go their separate ways. This woman, the witch of Endor, feeds King Saul. She cares for him. And also remember, this is a woman who Saul had all sorts of prejudices against. Right? He has just banished all of the mediums when he went to talk to her. But this woman comforts him and feeds him. So the witch of Endor, as it turns out, was able to help Saul. But not by bringing up the ghost of his old advisor. The witch of Endor helps Saul with her presence, with her real human care, as do his friends around him. She gives him the help that the voices from the past are never going to give him. I think about all the goings-on and the chaos that it can feel like we are inundated with in our country at the moment, and all of the times that we have endured another public figure insisting that they are just doing what Dr. King or Mother Teresa or Ronald Reagan would have wanted them to do. And then I think about two things. First, I think about being part of the Women's March in Boston a couple weeks back. Boston was one of those cities where the crowd was so big that they had to cancel the march because there was no room to march anywhere. They filled the grounds. And I looked around at all of those people who showed up, those people offering their real living care to the people around them. I think about my friend Adam Cheney, who was in my 5th grade class, and he recently friended me on Facebook. Adam is a Baptist minister in a small town in Texas. Adam and I don't agree on anything. But I watch him doing his ministry. I watch the compassion with which he engages his congregants. I watch him leading his congregation through this difficult time with so much care and so much love. I think about these things, and I stop wishing for the witch of Endor. Because in a way, we have the witch of Endor, right? We don't have the witch of Endor who can bring dead people back, but we have the person who can feed us. We have the person who can care for us, the person who can inspire us and lift us up and help us through our dark moments when we are cowering and grieving like King Saul, so afraid of what is to come. And of course, the advice and insight that we have heard from the prophets and teachers that have led us and mentored us are crucially important. But they are not nearly as important as the advice and insight that we hear from the people around us. The people that we need are here. The wisdom that we need is here, with them, in them. A minute ago, I mentioned how this little story about the witch of Endor, it doesn't seem to add anything to the larger narrative of King Saul. But I would argue that what it adds is instructions for how to move forward. It adds a lesson about the role that we all can play when we are in a similarly scary situation. And it's a lesson that Unitarian Universalists need to pay special attention to. Even if we don't usually take our lessons from the Bible, this is an important lesson for us to hear. Unitarian Universalism has a unique contribution to make to the conversation going on in our country and in our world. Our commitment to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person is a prophecy that we have to deliver, a prophecy that we alone are able to deliver. We have leaders and thinkers in our movement that have come before us and paved the way for us. Henry David Thoreau, Olympia Brown, Sophia Fawes, James Reed, all of the Nevers. Those people and those voices, while they are important, we wouldn't be here without them. But our movement now, and what it means to the world in which we live, that is all on us. The work that we have to do now is ours to do, and that is the work of being a voice of compassion and understanding and justice in our communities and in our world. It is the work of being a religious community that affirms and promotes the inherent worth and dignity of every person, even people who make us uncomfortable, even people who are as different from us as the Witch of Endor was from King Saul. It is significant that the person who ends up bringing King Saul his comfort is a person who he himself has just attempted to banish, and who knows that he's just attempted to banish her. It is significant that with chaos and cruelty all around her, she responds by being a source only for kindness, only for compassion. And I think about my beloved Pete Seeger and what he would say if I somehow managed to find the Witch of Endor and bring him back for a conversation. I imagine he'd be a little nicer, but still, I imagine he might say something that in the end would be similar. I imagine he would say that he gave all that he had to give. And now we are here together, ready to step forward and play our part, ready to use our own voice, our own hands, to bring greater love and compassion into our world. Amen. I invite you